the last episode of Ultimate Survival, Everest, Team Discovery felt the wrath of the world's tallest mountain. Expedition leader Ben Webster, along with his girlfriend, Shauna Burke, tried climbing to Camp 3, but were turned around by bad weather.
Very good decision to retreat when we did.
Professional climber Andrew Locke made it to Camp 3, while fellow hired gun Hector Postillon went even higher to an altitude of 7,400 meters, securing safety lines with Discovery's head Sherpas. On that day, Hector, Lac Magalo, and Mingma Sherpa were the highest climbers on the mountain.
We can start feeling the altitude, I think, huh?
Yeah.
Team Discovery is acclimatizing well. Now, everyone is back at Camp 2 and is excited to be among the first teams ready to make their push for the summit. All they have to do now is head back down to base camp and rest for a week. How hard could that be? Like all of the great arts, climbing Mount Everest requires impeccable timing. To summit, you must take your cues from the mountain and from other teams. The 2-month climbing season is so short and is so popular that human traffic jams inevitably occur. Ben is trying to avoid getting his team stuck in a lineup, freezing to death. By arriving early and acclimatizing quickly, he's maneuvered Discovery into the front of the pack. Ben's plan is to head for the summit before any of the other 19 teams can get in his way.
Slack and slack, Luke.
If we can be ahead of the curve and not be around a lot of these other teams that will be slower in getting into position, and if we're lucky with an early window, we can get in and out before all the trouble potentially can start.
On Everest, crowds can be deadly. On the mountain's most tragic day, May 10th, 1996, 16 members of commercial expeditions died after waiting too long at the Hillary Step, tantalizingly close to the summit.
If we can get up there early, try to summit early, it reduces the chances of being caught in a bottleneck with those commercial expeditions, such as happened in '96, where you have a lot of slow and inexperienced people that have to be shepherded with large numbers of Sherpas up the mountain. And that bottleneck occurs mostly around the Hillary Step, but it can occur basically anywhere on the mountain. If we can avoid that, then I think the effort expenditure is worthwhile.
Leaving early on minimal rest means that every minute of relaxation time is precious. But today's rest at Camp 2 doesn't seem like it's going to be very peaceful.
The wind right now is blowing pretty hard. It started like an hour ago and it doesn't look like it's gonna stop. So this might mean we will get snow again this afternoon or this evening. So let's hope it stops though. Well, you can see and hear how it moves the tent. It wouldn't let us leave if it blows all through the night.
Tonight, Hector will have a hard time sleeping, partly from the wind, partly from the lack of oxygen, but mostly because a friend of his has lost radio contact high up on the mountain. The missing friend is Hector's old climbing partner, Andreas Delgado. Worrying about Andreas is a familiar feeling for Hector.
Last evening, I went up to the Mexican camp and I found out that Andres and a friend of his had this plan of going up to close to 8,000 meters or even above, you know, that start of the Lhotse corridor. All throughout the night, the wind was blowing really hard. Even down here at Camp 2, we could feel it. So I really can't imagine what it was like up there at Camp 3 or above. So I really hope Andres didn't do what he said he was going to do. But there still haven't been any news from them. This morning I've been looking at the Lhotse face, trying to spot people, and I haven't still seen anyone.
Hector worries that he may have to rescue the missing Mexican climbers. Andreas, who is attempting to summit without oxygen, is a risk taker. Hector knows he saved Andreas' life before. Hector is practically holding the vigil, waiting for the missing Mexicans. Why isn't Andreas answering his radio? Is he in a crevasse? Is he in a coma?
De Campo 3 para
I can
confirmed that there's 2 climbers coming down from Camp 3. They're gonna have to be really, really careful, because this is not the kind of conditions in which I would want to come down, you know, strong winds. It makes things harder, as I said, and the Lhotse face is the kind of face where you cannot commit not even one small mistake.
When he was last heard from, Andreas was headed up to Camp 4, an area also called the South Col.
I didn't get onto the col because it started the wind and one of my feet was very cold, so I decided to turn back. And with this, I think my acclimatization is set.
Andreas is climbing without oxygen and without medication. He wants to feel every ache and pain.
My head was clear, my breathing was standard at that altitude. I was not suffering from aerobic capacity, I was just weak. Weak from fighting the wind, weak from having diarrhea 2 days ago, weak from the altitude as well.
For me, it's a challenge, you know, that kind of challenge, a personal challenge.
Three hours after they're first spotted, Andreas and his climbing partner Alejandro arrive safely back at Camp 2. They expect congratulations, but Hector lets Andreas know that he's not impressed.
I just talked with your Jose Luis, your base camp manager. He was very worried because there were rumors of one of you lost above Camp 3. You know how it goes. Just talk with him and I let him know everyone's fine. I don't know, you know how it goes.
Hector stopped climbing with Andreas because it simply became too dangerous.
Andres and I went through some very, very, you know, difficult experiences together, you know. Back in Everest in '96, up high in the mountain, he tried for the summit on that famous May 10th from the north side. And he almost couldn't make it back to camp after he was hit by the storm, you know. And then he was so weak from like exposure to those elements that he couldn't come down. And I went from base camp to that camp where he was at.
He decided to save me. And go ahead and ask him. As I recall, he said, I wouldn't forgive myself for my own inquisitive judgment if I didn't give Andres the opportunity to leave. That's the only guy I can for sure say that he would risk his life to save somebody.
I went from base camp to that camp where he was at, you know, pretty much unconscious, and helped him come down, you know. It was, I can remember, very, very tough 2 days in which Andres was so tired he only managed like to take a step and he had to sit down, you know.
I tried till my last drop of sweat came out of me.
I short roped him and helped him down.
You don't know mountaineering until you're there, until you're in a problem up there.
We've been together through a lot of these experiences, very intense, you know. South face of Shishapagma is another example, you know. Things got out of control and we spent like 8 days up high instead of the 4 we planned on. 3 of those 8 days without any water, any food, you know, we barely made it down.
Shishapangma is the 14th highest mountain in the world. While descending it, barely alive, Hector fell into a deep crevasse. Instead of helping his partner, Andreas packed up and left.
Hector was way behind and he fell into one of those crevasses. And he spent the night there. I remember at some point just looking back and watching at Hector at the dusk, you know, and I was like, man, this is gonna be terrible because it's a live or die situation. I don't have strength to go back and help him, but I don't know if I'm gonna see him again, you know.
Against all odds, Hector survived the night and climbed out of the crevasse. He staggered back down to camp, fueled only by the will to live.
At some point you say like, I hope he's okay, but there's nothing I can do for him now. And when I saw his red suit in the morning, I was like, thank God. Because if he had died at that point, I would feel guilty all my life.
There were also other things, you know, that from my point of view, you know, were unacceptable, were the kind of things you don't do to a friend and to a climbing partner, you know.
I believe I'm not aware of what I'm deciding up there.
I just decided what I was the rewards of climbing with Andres were not more than the, you know, a kind of inner conflict.
Don't judge till you get up there and leave something similar.
What I won't do is, like, for instance, go together on an expedition with him.
Team Discovery is headed back down to base camp so they can rest up and prepare for their summit push. British socialite Annabelle Bond and the Chilean team she is part of are headed back down to base camp as well. But Annabelle has a problem underfoot. The brand new boots she's wearing are 3 sizes too big. To summit Mount Everest, you need to be on top of thousands of details. Getting even one thing wrong can be the death of you. Mount Everest Base Camp is the highest inhabited point on Earth. It's a small but vibrant, multicultural mountain village. For the climbers who live here for 2 months, life at base camp unwinds at a lackadaisical pace. People play cards, throw dice, read magazines, eat carbohydrates, sleep, wake up, and do it all over again.
I slept well.
So my tent's here. This is all our equipment stored in these barrels outside, just because to keep the tents kind of pretty free. As you can see, we're on this kind of like moraine glacier. It's kind of dangerous. I mean, half the time there's ice underneath the rocks, so you're kind of sliding all over the place. All through the night you can hear the glacier moving, creaking, and that's avalanches aside. We've actually developed a rather dangerous crevasse on our way to the loo, so you have to be exceptionally vigilant, otherwise how embarrassing, like falling at base camp on your way to the loo.
This is our most important delicatessen at base camp, pure ground coffee.
Yeah, I mean, you get used to it, really. I guess all the luxuries that you're used to after a few weeks, you just become, you know, you don't take them for granted anymore. I mean, I can't remember what a loo seat's like.
Okay, guys, I'll let it go. Up to Camp 4 and up to the summit.
Technologically speaking, though, base camp is as up to date as anywhere on Earth.
Not 200,000 feet, 20,000 feet.
Satellite phones abound. Internet is everywhere. And fancy gadgets help stave off boredom.
I've got a little power source here. Charge the phone, charge the music, so there's always communication and entertainment.
If the forecast is good, Team Discovery's climbing Sherpas are scheduled to head up the mountain tomorrow to establish the high-altitude camps. That means a lot of heavy lifting. Ironically, these cumbersome crates contain only a few grams of supplies. It's oxygen, 3 full bottles for every climber. The gas may be light, but the steel tanks weigh 8 kilos each, half the acceptable load for the climbing Sherpas. We'll be stashing them at camps 3 and 4.
We have more than 100 oxygen bottles, 60 fresh new oxygen bottle came from Russia. Unfortunately, among more than 100 oxygen bottle, we find out 1 empty bottles.
The Westerners on Team Discovery are due to leave for their summit push in 3 days. It's down to the nitty-gritty now.
I used to find that there's so much dirt in these things. It takes 3 good washes to get it out. And then a good 3 rinses, I guess, to get the soap out.
Andrew is used to doing his own laundry. Single and 40, this former Australian police officer spends almost half of every year in the mountains working as a paid guide. Andrew's love of climbing began 19 years ago. In a Sydney pub, he saw a slideshow given by the first Australian to ever summit Mount Everest. Andrew was instantly hooked.
I climb for 2 reasons, and I think this is lost by a lot of people who come here. But I climb for the challenge that I can set myself to see what I can do on the mountains, to push myself to my limits. But also because I think this is absolutely the most stunning environment in the world. It's nature in all her magnificence, and there's nowhere I'd rather be. And
Andrew may look like he's doing his laundry all by himself, but like everything on Everest, this is a team effort.
Getting the water's a hassle, because there's the kitchen staff who have to go off to the glacial stream to collect the water. So it's hard work for them, troopsing back and forth to collect the water for the kitchen and also for the washing. And if I take a shower later on, a little shower tent there, that's more water again. So I tend not to do it terribly often, but obviously I can do it sometimes.
Even eating at base camp is a chore. Climbers' appetites are diminished, but their need for food is increased. At this altitude, humans burn 3 times as many calories as they do at sea level. To keep them going, the Sherpas eat local fare. For protein, they rely on yak meat. They eat it raw, and they fry it up. Tea is the beverage of choice on Everest. Every morning it's served in bed, and all day long it boils in the mess tent. The Westerners aren't very adventurous when it comes to food, eating mostly packaged products from home.
Funny thing is with altitude is that no matter how many times you've been to altitude before, your tastes change. So what was really nice last time may not be at all appetizing this time. And so we really have to sort of cover the range of tastes.
While climbing, junk food is the king of the hill.
Bars.
Almost every day, yaks come up with supplies. In today's shipment of goods are Annabelle's new high-altitude boots. To ascend steep slopes, climbers have to kick into the ice using steel spikes called crampons that are attached to the soles of their boots. This toe-kicking technique is called front pointing. Annabelle couldn't front point properly in her old boots because they were too big.
Oh, yeah. They were a little bit big, but in the shop, when you're walking around, it's not quite like being on the icefall. So I bought them, and on the icefall, when I'm like going uphill, my heels come right out the back. I mean, the boot, it looks like I've got a disconnected leg or something, and I can't front point on the Lhotse face. So it was just... So I mean, an urgent phone call to the States. I mean, it's just amazing that these things can show up here. I just saw a porter going past with Millet, and I was like, stop! Yeah, this is my proper shoe size. The other one was 3 sizes too big. Although these feel narrower than my other ones. It feels much better, but I have to now put the other inner sole in.
In 3 days, Team Discovery will be ready to go for the summit. But will the summit be ready for them? Andrew Locke is one of the weathermen on Team Discovery. Every day he checks the internet for the local forecast. Information comes from weather offices in Nepal, Sweden, and London, England. Today, the websites are unanimous. The weather at the summit is deadly.
So since we came down from Camp 2, we had our camps in place, and we're well enough acclimatized to make a summit attempt, but we're obliged to wait for suitable weather before we can go to the top, and also before the Sherpas can climb up to Camp 4 and actually get some of our equipment up to Camp 4 for the summit attempt. And in that whole time we've had very high winds, some precipitation, but that hasn't been the problem. It's the high winds. We're getting winds of up to 100 kilometres or more on the summit, and what we're really hanging out for now is the good weather spell which will let us go up and steal the summit in the brief time that the jet stream moves away from the summit of Mount Everest, as it usually does each season. Still very strong.
The jet stream is a narrow current of viciously strong westerly wind that encircles the globe at high altitude.
The strongest winds aren't over us, but the tail of the jet stream is, and that's enough to stop us.
Will Cross, the diabetic high school principal from Pittsburgh, is also at base camp, resting up for his summit push.
Well, the game plan now is to rest for about a week, to follow the weather closely. There are a number of weather sources. Really, over the next week, we want to try and understand who's got the best sense of weather at which altitude. And then probably in about a week, start moving up the mountain and hopefully be in place when that clear zero wind window comes for the summit.
The lead that Ben had on the other teams is evaporating quickly. Every day that he is forced to wait means another 2 or 3 teams catch up with him. To make sure he steers clear of the impending traffic jams, Ben now has to work with the very climbers he was trying to avoid.
Maybe getting a bunch of teams to put resources, whether it be manpower, ropes, whatever, to break the trail on the 13th, so that then we know at least to the balcony, hopefully higher, it's ready to go.
And definitely we will love to try to move together.
Well, we were sort of counting on Discovery. I mean, you guys were part of the plan anyway, in terms of looking at a 4 or 5 team deal.
It's going to be congested. Half of the 19 teams are now fully acclimatized. That means over 50 climbers are ready to head up as soon as the window of opportunity opens. If it opens.
We don't dictate to the mountain. The mountain dictates to us. So if you have your plan, you say, no, I'm sticking to my plan, the mountain will have other ideas and you'll be blown.
So teams wait. And wait. And wait. And wait. The weather at the summit is still deadly, but the forecasts say the window of opportunity will open in 4 days. Now, almost every team on the mountain is ready to go for the summit. Ben doesn't like the thought of his entire group getting caught up in the stampede, so to satisfy the needs of the project and to maximize his chances of getting a video camera to the top, he makes a new plan and calls a team meeting.
The word I'm hearing here is that they're prepared to go on this first window. Nobody's going to wait. From lesser teams...
Ben decides to break Team Discovery into 2 groups. Hector and Andrew will leave as planned when the first window opens. But Ben and Shauna will now wait a week to climb in the second window after the crowds have thinned out. Waiting until after May 20th is a risky proposition. The weather could be perfect, or the monsoon season could start early, wiping out any chance of a summit.
Like I'm saying that, yeah, it sounds good and you're pretty much assured in the 20s, but the only reason everybody's going to be pushing on this first window is because it's a window, and you climb when you have a window. If you purposely stand down off of a window, you're rolling the dice. It's Vegas at that point.
Everest is a high-risk poker game where the stakes are people's lives. Shauna struggles with the hand that she's been dealt.
Put Shauna on the spot. This is where Shauna's got to jump in and just voice exactly how you feel, because what's being tabled here is taking a guaranteed shot to a maybe shot. And how do you feel about that?
Well, from the project standpoint, I see it's a very valid point. From a selfish standpoint, no, I would rather go when I first see the first window and go and, see if I do have a chance. But that may be exactly...
For 12 months, Shauna has trained for this moment. Being held back now, when she's healthy and ready to push for the summit, is the biggest obstacle she's faced so far.
I don't know how to deal with it. I feel like I'm waiting. What is going to happen to me? And every day that we sit here, it sits on me.
Right now, every team is discussing the role that oxygen will play in their adventure on Mount Everest. How much O2 do they have? When will they use it? And where will they hide it? Believe it or not, oxygen theft is rampant at high altitude. Climbing teams stash their gas and then hope it's still there when they go back for it. Lakpagelu and the Discovery Sherpas are headed up with the last of the team's bottled oxygen. Everest was first conquered in 1953 with supplemental oxygen. No climber made it to the top without oxygen until 1978. Today, climbing without oxygen is still very rare. So rare and risky that on Everest, climbers usually frown upon those who go without. Andrew knows the pros and cons.
What I found in the past is that using oxygen allows me to recover faster. So for a given distance, a given height that I climb, 10 metres, 20 metres, whatever, when I stop to rest, I can start again faster, I recover faster. They're the pros. The cons are that if you run out of gas while you're climbing with it, you're going to be in a much worse position than when you started off, or than if you hadn't even used it, because you're likely, not definitely, but likely to suffer quite severe hypoxia from that sudden cut-off.
Hypoxia is simply a lack of oxygen to body tissue, including the brain. When hypoxia happens, a variety of disasters can occur, from simple queasiness and confusion to brain damage and death. Everest's peak is at an altitude of almost 9 kilometers. Oxygen levels that high are only 30% what they are at sea level. The air is so thin, helicopters can't fly, and climbers can barely think. It's the goal of Andreas and his team of Mexican and Quebecois climbers to go for the summit without oxygen. But after a recent fiasco at Camp 3, Andreas is scrambling to keep control. A mutiny is brewing.
There was not enough rope, there were not enough anchor ropes, there was not enough ice screws.
Tom,
flat.
We are throwing the dice on something really difficult, which is trying to climb Everest without oxygen. And on the other hand, we're making some mistakes which shouldn't be done.
Some of the mistakes Andreas refers to happened at the 7,400 meter mark, a place where Sherpas refuse to sleep. Up there to spend the night with Andreas was Richard and Martin, who are both doctors from Quebec, and also Tom, a 58-year-old mountain guide from Colorado. They were intense with faulty zippers, scared they had to make a choice, stay or go.
We didn't have enough brains to think and to look at the situation up there. When the wind started blowing that hard, I turned to Luis and said, get dressed, get your boots on, because this is gonna go to hell. And when it breaks, we have to start running down. Yeah. None of you guys had your boots on, okay?
Our leader said, well, later, you should have had your boots on, be ready to move down the mountain. To me, to have the boots on and ready to move down the mountain in over 100 kilometer an hour wind in the middle of the night where you can't see the rope, you can't see where you're going, and conditions were lethal. That's would not have been my decision.
The next time we get up there and we have to change plans, let's rely either on experience or on head.
And if neither of those work?
The best thing is to pray. Pray, man.
While Andreas relies on prayers, Team Discovery relies on experience and supplies. Before coming to Everest, Shauna had never been above 7,000 meters. She's never used oxygen, so Andrew explains the ins and outs of breathing bottled gas.
So there's a bottle.
Okay.
Read the pressure on it. Our masks attach to this white cap piece. It's just a bayonet fitting. Screw on, let it lock.
Okay.
Here's your mask.
Okay.
Flow rate. You've got anywhere from 0 up to 4 litres.
Okay.
And it's a slow progression. 0.5, 1 litre, 2 litres, 3 litres, 4 litres. That's maximum. You can hear it coming through the mask now.
Okay.
And you can see that it's flowing properly by that valve. See how it's sprung up?
Yep.
Shut that down, it drops. Turn it on, it comes up. So that's how you check. Every time you put a new bottle on, make sure that comes up when you turn it on, yeah? Okay. And we would generally climb at a flow rate of 2 litres a minute. And on a 3-litre bottle like this, which is fully pressured, this one's under pressure, but one with 250 litres pressure, we'll get 6 climbing hours at 2 litres a minute.
Above 8,000 meters, climbers breathe out so much moisture it can be deadly. Dehydration kills climbers, and condensation from breath can cause equipment failure.
We'll get huge icicles building up underneath this valving. From time to time you have to break them off. And in fact you can get icicle build-ups in here, which is the oxygen intake. And if you find that you're suddenly getting very tired and you don't seem to be getting the oxygen, you take off the mask and you often find that there's ice in here, which you have to either chip away or break off or melt or whatever, so that the oxygen can flow again.
Okay, now if you wanted to talk to someone or drink something, how long can you take it off for?
You don't have to. You can talk through the mask.
Okay.
But you have to shout. If you take it off for as long as you feel good. It's quite common to take it off for some minutes at a time. We'll get to the balcony, we'll be changing bottles, we'll take the mask off, we'll be talking, all that sort of stuff. Summit, if we get there, you'll definitely take it off and be chatting and all that sort of stuff. Woohoo!
Team Discovery is all business. There's no room for emotion on this expedition. Andreas, on the other hand, is driven by passion.
You know, I was writing this morning that this should be a day to celebrate. But somewhat hit me this morning. My baby's at home without a father, and my wife as well, and I miss them, and that hurts, you know. That comes when you ease off your feelings. But it's just one more push, so let's make them proud. And that's what I was writing right now. This is when you miss them.
Knowing that they won't have to climb up the mountain anytime soon, Ben and Shauna head down to a lower altitude. The oxygen-rich air down valley will help their bodies recover from the stress of acclimatization. Shauna wants to be climbing. The longer she waits, the more she thinks about what might happen. These structures built by the Sherpas are called chortens. They honor fallen climbers.
There's dozens of memorials here to all fallen climbers. They're mostly Sherpas, but there are a few Westerners mixed in. It's always a very somber moment when we walk up here. All the memorials, a healthy reminder that once you get up on the mountain, it's serious business, you know. For all the joy it can give you, it can certainly create a lot of heartache as well.
At base camp, a new virus is ripping through the landscape, and it's planted itself firmly in the intestinal tract of Andrew Locke.
I don't know how long it will take to get over or to get strong again, and that worries me for the summit attempt. But yeah, it's been a fairly miserable few days, I guess. It's not uncommon to get bugs in Nepal, but normally I can beat them fairly fast. I've been coming long enough, I've got enough resistance. This one certainly got hold of me and kicked me pretty hard.
The weather on the summit is crystal clear. Tomorrow, Andrew's window will finally be open, and he should start climbing. Team Discovery Sherpas will have everything ready for him. Lap Kagelu is well on track to summit Everest for his 11th time. Right now, he's going strong at an altitude of 7,600 meters.
This place is elevated, very, very difficult climbing.
Gelu and 5 of his best Sherpa climbers are headed for Camp 4, also known as the South Call. Here they will drop the oxygen stash needed for Team Discovery's summit bid. Genetically, Sherpas have thicker skin, and their hemoglobin is more oxygen absorbent than that of Westerners. But even Lakpa Gelu suffers at this altitude. He works through the pain, stacking the team's oxygen tanks under a mess of rocks to prevent them from being scattered in the wind. With this job done, the Sherpas head down to Camp 2, where they will continue work building a radio communications tower. At base camp, the rush for the summit is getting underway. 9 teams begin their assault this morning. Amongst the brave souls is Annabelle Bond, one of only 12 women here.
It is, May the 11th, and we're going up for our summit attempt. I'm hoping to try and summit on the 15th of May. I'm terrified.
The race is on for the summit of Mount Everest, and the human traffic jams are already beginning.
I'm really actually nervous. I've got a lot of suppressed nerves in here. I want to go through here as few times as possible. So I'm praying that we've got the right weather window and we don't have to come back down to base camp unnecessarily. Anyway, there's a lot of people ferrying loads, going up, getting ready for their summit push, and we're one of those people. So fingers crossed for me. I better keep going to keep up.
Gaps in the icefall used to be bridged with rope ladders. Today, about 70 aluminum ones connect the dots. Annabelle is trying to take them in stride.
I can't tell you how much I hate these ladders. I'm walking today, but I might resort to crawling a little bit later on. But just looking down scares the hell out of me in case it moves. But anyway, at least I'm standing up today.
Although Annabelle was in the icefall a short 2 weeks ago, the area has changed dramatically. With the warm weather, it shifted and altered its shape, becoming weaker and more unstable. It's one of the most dangerous areas to get through that offers the first real challenge to the climbers.
This is how secure this ladder is, so I'm gonna help shake my way across. Ah!
Base camp, Andrew is still not standing up. He's supposed to start his push for the summit tomorrow, but the prognosis from Team Discovery's doctor doesn't sound good.
That over there is Andrew's tent. Unfortunately, Andrew's been in there all day. He's had a stomach bug, which has really kind of wreaked havoc on his ability to eat and sleep. And so we're going to take it kind of one day at a time and see if by tonight or maybe tomorrow he's feeling well enough that we can start to get him moving again.
On the icefall, Annabelle starts moving again. She throws around her 10-kilo backpack with hands that are tender and fragile.
Sorry about that. I have to be very careful with my hands. I've got hand warmers in. I had frostbite about 4 months ago, and the ends of my fingers are still really painful and are actually still numb from my trip to Camp 3 the other day. So I really feel the cold.
Annabelle's plan for today is to get through the icefall, climb past Camp 1, and make it all the way to Camp 2, altitude 6,500 meters. The 9-hour journey is a daunting prospect. It's the longest, hardest climb Annabelle has ever attempted in her life.
I guess I have to admit to myself I'm a little bit claustrophobic in that. I don't like the odds, I don't like the statistics, I don't like having these huge apartment-sized seracs hanging over me. So I like to move through fast.
I say? I'm pulling hot. I'm exhausted.
On the Icefall's final ladder, Annabelle is clipped in with 2 safety lines. Still, it doesn't exactly feel safe. It's hard to enjoy yourself in this environment, even when you should feel thrilled. Annabelle's team is in first place, and she is in position to be the first woman to summit this year. But is she happy?
Just torture.
10 short days ago, Team Discovery was leading the charge toward the world's tallest peak. Now, only one member is ready to go. Somehow the tables got turned. Ben was waiting for the mountain. Now, the mountain waits for Ben. On the next episode of Ultimate Survival, Everest, Hector heads off for the summit.
Full bottle.
Team Discovery's oxygen goes missing.
Any other Sherpa selling oxygen, we're buying.
And Ben continues to hold Shauna back.
For someone I care about a great deal, very hard decision. And as she was crying in the tent with me, saying to her, you know, at the end of the day, it's my call.